Glad you could make it, man. Glad you could make it. I'm excited, man. Why don't you tell everybody who you is, man? I don't like telling people who you. I might sell you short, but I need you to tell everybody who you is first.
Royce White, product of the Twin Cities, hometown legend. Just the man out here trying to make a difference, man. I'm a product of the cities through and through, so I appreciate being here.
See, that's what I mean by selling it so short, man. This dude, they beat us by 50, man. I ain't gonna lie, but you ain't care about my mental health with that. with that 50 piece, man. That was tough, man. That college team y'all had. Everybody in the league right now, too.
Yeah.
How you get over there?
Where?
To Hopkins.
Oh, well, you know, I started at DeLaSalle.
Yeah.
And then I got into some trouble at DeLaSalle, and they wanted to dismiss me from DeLaSalle, or they did dismiss me from DeLaSalle. I really didn't want to leave D because me and Thorson had a great relationship. You know, he's like a father figure to me, same way he is to a lot of the players that come through D. And you know, they told me I could basically come back the next year and play, or leave the school, and I wasn't going to wait to play the following year because it's the middle of our season. I took it kind of a slap in the face.
It was like you was going to sit out a whole season?
No, so it was like the middle of the season when I got in trouble.
Right.
And me and my teammate were, you know, copying each other's answers on a test or whatever, and they were real. They pulled a real zero tolerance, you know, type of move on.
Even on you?
Yeah. I mean, you know, that happens sometimes.
I feel like they'd be like.
You would think, but you know, it happens sometimes, and you know that's their decision. It's their school, so it was the middle of the season. Right. So they told me, well, you can't come back and play this season, but what you can do is you can come back next year. And I was like, nah, I don't need to do that. I just transfer, and you know, I transferred to Hopkins, and the Novaks and my grandfather have known each other for a long time because my grandfather was a referee for many years. He's a Hall of Fame referee in Minnesota high school basketball. So, you know, he already had a relationship with Novak. I had been going over there to Hopkins to play pickup for, you know, the entire time I was in high school. I knew Kenny well, and obviously I grew up with Mark Will and Raymond, right? We all played together when we were young. So it was just a natural transition to Hopkins.
Yeah, I ain't coming north.
Man, that's a good.
You knew a lot of people over there. We knew you.
I ain't live over there. I didn't live over there.
We could have got you an address, man.
You could have got me one.
Everybody had we could have got you an address.
Right.
But y'all made was that the best Hopkins team ever?
I mean, you know, different eras, different teams, you know, different styles of play. I say pound for pound is probably close, and not because of you know, when people look at the best teams of all time, they look at the star players. And that's one aspect of it, but you also have to look at who the bench was. Yeah. And I would say that our bench was probably the deepest bench in Minnesota history. And I say that because two of the players who were on our bench end up being Mr. Basketball, right? I mean, we had a couple of guys on the bench.
Who was that?
Siani.
You got Mr. Basketball?
I think Siani got Mr. Basketball. Okay. And then Joe Coleman.
I know Joe did.
Joe Coleman got, yeah. But Marvin Singleton was good. He ended up playing at UNI, high major D1, still plays pro to this day. Moses Sindufu, who a lot of people don't remember, but Moses Sindufu was a bad boy. He was on the bench. DJ Peterson was on the bench. I mean, these guys are all mid to high major basketball players coming off of the bench. So, you know, we had a really deep team, and then, you know, our starting five were all high major guys.
But y'all got to travel a little bit more than the average Minnesota team a little bit.
They kind of jigged us with that too. You know, that was right around the time when they implemented the rule that we couldn't travel out of state, because when we started the year, we were ranked in the top 10 in the country. Yeah. And then as the year went on, we kind of stayed right around that 10 spot because they wouldn't let us go play any of the Oak Hills or any of those national tournaments. So we played one time in New York City for a tournament that was run by Nike and one of the Gaucho family. And
I was the exception for that, though.
We had a 3-game tournament out there. It was just the only. I think actually maybe we only played one game out there.
I remember one.
We played one game out there. I'm sorry. We played Brooklyn. We played Jefferson out there, and we just stomped them by like 20, and that was it.
Who did they have on there? They had anybody?
Not anybody that I remember of note, but they were pretty high ranked nationally too. Yeah.
So from there, though, y'all went on to win state that year.
31-0.
ICO got y'all a little scared.
They did.
Was you nervous at all?
Not at all.
Not before the game, but like.
Not at all.
These dudes might heat up at the right time.
Not at all.
That was y'all closest game, wasn't it?
Nah, I think our closest game was actually the first game of the season against St. Bernard's. It was in their gym over there on the east side.
Right.
And if you know anything about St. Bernard's gym, it's real small.
Yeah.
And in the wintertime, because it's so small and the snow and the condensation from the shoes and all the people packed in there, the court was real slippery. So I remember right off of the jump ball, I went to go turn and break for the fast, and I slid. And everybody in the starting five, we all were just looking at each other like, oh, man, because we all had our scholarships, right? So nobody wanted to get hurt and whatnot. But they played us pretty close. And obviously, Jordair Jet, he's from St. Paul. He's one of my guys from childhood, 3rd, 4th grade. He's a killer still to this day. He's one of the best guards in history, in my opinion, in Minnesota. And he led that team well. So that was probably the closest game. But I was never nervous with the ICO game.
I think it was just closer than a lot of people thought it was going to be.
It was close, but, you know, like, by that time I was locked in. I was in mode, you know, because I had gotten dismissed from DeLaSalle, and there was that controversy right there. And then I got to Hopkins, and everybody's, oh, you cheating, and all of this stuff was being said, and people were, you know, knocking us.
What was the criticism?
Well, the criticism for Hopkins always is that Coach Novak is recruiting, and guys are coming, and they don't really live there. And I just think it's silly because at the end of the day, victory begets victory. When you win, people want to come be with the winning team. And, you know, for me, I think a lot of people didn't realize that I grew up playing on the north side.
Yeah.
I grew up playing for the Minneapolis Hustlers. I'm from the roots of the Minneapolis Hustlers. So for me to go and play with Marcus and Raymond and some of the guys that were out there was natural for me. It had nothing really to do with Novak other than.
I ain't gonna lie, we was mad at them too. Mark Will got to come holler at me too.
You was mad at Mark too?
Yeah, man. These dudes live right around the corner, man, from North. You know, these dudes, you know, no, I'm just.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
But, you know, you always think like.
But see, originally I'm from St. Paul, though.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even really supposed to be at DeLaSalle, you could say. Yeah. But DeLaSalle private school.
Yeah, private.
So when I moved from private school.
I was just tired of everybody running. You know, we had a lot of success at North for a while, but then soon as the choice is yours and soon as all of that other stuff, it was like everybody was like, basically, forget the city schools. City schools is trash, you know, and that hurt numbers, that hurt, you know. I'm a little bitter about that.
No, I think it's a valid criticism. I mean, but this is a bigger conversation to have about the politics and the conditions of our communities. Right, it's not wrong for people to want to leave communities that are plagued by certain things, whether it be violence, gang violence, whether it be low opportunities, income. Now, my recommendation as a whole for black communities from here to New York City to LA would be to revitalize our communities so that people don't want to move away. And that would be more of a Malcolm X school of thought, is to say, why do we need to leave Harlem and go to the suburbs? Let's make Harlem a place that we want to live.
Right.
But we failed to do that. So a lot of people, out of necessity, you could say, try and find better opportunities in the suburbs and in other places.
I definitely understand it. It's just from a competitive point, you know. Yeah. But I understand it, you know.
So, but you would have wanted me, see, but you, so I came up with the Hustlers. So I would have naturally went to North or Henry because I come from that crop. Right. But realistically, I should have been going to Johnson or Central because I'm from the Selby side. I'm from Rondo. So I'm telling you that to say this. Even if I would have been at Central, I'd have still been kicking North's ass. That's a fact. No matter where I would have been,
that year,
y'all would have had anybody would have had problems with me.
No, I mean, yeah, you would have got your numbers. Yeah. I don't know who else was there that.
It don't matter.
Time. No, it would have mattered.
No, because the worst.
That would have mattered.
No, let me tell you why. Because the worst team I would have played on, the more I would have had the ball in my hands and been attacking nonstop all game.
I'm trying to think of
because I played on a loaded team. I was passing the ball. I was getting people involved, and I only usually played half the game my senior year because we was up 20-30.
Yeah, you was kind of a cheat code. I ain't gonna lie, your senior year, you was. Yeah. But still, though, I'd be a little bitter when I'd be like, man, dudes could have came to North, you know, or dudes could have came over here. But I like. You could have went to the city school. That's a city school too, Johnson, you know.
I always look, I grew up watching North play. I always respected North. I remember watching the North team play against Chris Humphrey's Hopkins team, and they
Kevin Henderson and
yeah, with Smoke,
yeah,
you know what I mean, and Cam Taylor and all of those guys. I mean, I still talk to some of those dudes to this day. Great teams. The teams over at Johnson, I grew up watching the Johnson team play with Freddie Coleman and Big Meech and Walter Haynes, rest in peace. You know what I mean? So, you know, the city schools I got no problem with. I come from that crop, but at the end of the day, it's like I understand why kids or parents decide, let me take my kid out here for whatever reason.
And I think we're getting better with it now, though. I think now it's a lot of more community, or at least attempt to get better right now.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We got to revamp the whole thing. I mean, I would love to see North's attendance go back up. I would love to see the sports program come back around. I would lend my time to help to do that. But there are other outside circumstances that affect the condition of the high school.
I shouldn't just say North. I just went to North.
It's
any
South,
inner city school.
It's Central. It's Johnson. But the difference. See, here's the difference in St. Paul, though. Let me show you. You got to think about geography too. The way the city's built, because North, being North High School and Henry or South, let's say, very different community condition than, let's say, a St. Paul Central. Because St. Paul Central, you know, you got the neighborhood right there. Central's on Marshall, right? I mean, in Marshall, that's the hood. But you go 3 blocks down and you're on Grand, right? So Central kind of has a more gentrified school dynamic, and it always has been that way. As to where North is more, you know, it's more in the thick of it. You know what I mean? So different dynamic.
Yeah, definitely in the thick of it on all four sides.
On all 4 sides. You know what I mean? So that's the reality.
You know.
Yeah.
But you was one of the ones that ended up going to the U. A lot of the U missed their beat on a lot of kids. How they get you?
Loyalty. You know what I mean? I had offers. I was probably one of the most outside of Lid and a couple other people, you know what I mean, throughout history. But in my era, I was probably the most highly recruited player, certainly in my class, but maybe in my entire 4-year era. And I got recruited by everybody from, you know, North Carolina, Texas, UCLA, USC, Villanova, you know, your pick, everybody.
Yeah.
And it was never a second thought for me to go to the U of M. Like, I never went and visited another school. I didn't even take an official visit.
Who was the coach at that time? Was it?
When I was first recruited by the U, it was Munson, and then Tubby came in and replaced Dan Munson. And the only other school I considered was Michigan State, and that's because Dave and Coach Izzo had such a good relationship. And, you know, I grew up watching Michigan State. Obviously, Allen Anderson went there. He had gone to DeLaSalle. So I had, you know, I watched that. But
did they, so you basically saying you went there off your loyalty, but how did they recruit you, though? They
didn't really have to. I helped them recruit.
Right.
I'll tell you how it happened. So Izzo, when Tubby got the job, I remember the day he got the job, I got pulled out of class. And he came over to the school to visit me. He came to pull me out of class and just say, you know, I just got the job. I'm in town. I want to make sure I come and tap in with the #1 recruit because we want you. That same day, Izzo.
At DeLaSalle?
This is at DeLaSalle.
Okay.
That same day, Izzo called me on the phone and he said, listen, I know Tubby just got to town. He's a great coach. I respect him. If he does everything he's supposed to do, you should stay home and go to the University of Minnesota. But if not, you come to Michigan State and play for me.
Right.
And you know, and then after that is when the whole thing happened when I got dismissed from DeLaSalle. And both schools still wanted me. Both schools would have still took me. But going into my senior year, I was just like, man, I didn't get my chance to do what I wanted to do at DeLaSalle. And I felt like that took me away from the community in some respects.
Did you win at DeLaSalle?
Yeah, I won 1 state championship at D. And in my sophomore year, we lost to Benil, Jordan Taylor, and them, Jordan and Armand battle. We lost in the section finals, and then my junior years, halfway through the season, my season was cut.
You started the season with DeLaSalle your junior year, and then
halfway through
You never finished it.
Didn't finish my junior year.
Next year you was with Hopkins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, man. So to stay at the U was never a second thought. I committed right away at the beginning of my junior summer for Pulley, and the rest was history.
Yeah, I just say that because Jalen Suggs. I don't know if you seen the,
That's my little cousin.
He mentioned I think he was talking to Richard Jefferson or something. He mentioned they really didn't go after him like that. They really kind of.
Yeah, you know, I can't speak to that because different coaching regimes, different points of view. All I can say is that we in the sports world, we have a facade about competence, about coaches knowing what they're doing and paying coaches who don't know what they're doing, but walk around like they know what they're doing. And that's a situation where clearly somebody dropped the ball. I mean, Jalen is, if not the most talented player to come out of Minnesota, he's right up there with me and Lid. And Minnesota should have threw the entire kitchen sink to try and make sure that he stayed home. And I know that he's a kid who comes from the roots, who comes from the mud of the city, who would have loved to stay home and play in front of.
He said he wanted to stay home.
Yeah, who would have loved to do that. And the fact that they dropped that ball, like I even late in the game, even though Minnesota went for me the way it did, I still advocated that he should have stayed home and went to Minnesota late in the game in his recruitment because I saw the bigger picture. But at the end of the day, he made a great choice, and wherever Jalen went, he was going to be successful. So Minnesota missed out.
So what happened with you at Minnesota?
My situation was a little different. You know, Minnesota had been on a slide.
Because you never ended up playing, did you?
I never played.
Never played.
Minnesota, the U of M was on a slide since Clem had been there. Clem's controversy Clem was the last coach that had a winning record and a good regime at the U of M. And then when they slammed him for all of the stuff that went down with him, the U of M had been just riding, been downward. Good coaches. I like Dan Munson. Dan Munson was the coach before Tubby. I always went to the U of M games. He recruited me. I would have stayed at home even if Dan Munson was the coach. But they had been on a downward slide, and when I got ready to commit, I was one of the highest recruits to stay home since Chris Humphreys. And remember, Chris initially said he was going to Duke, and then he decided to come back home. So I was one of the highest recruits to say, I'm going to the U of M out of the gate. And so there was a lot of hype with that. There was a lot of momentum on top of the fact that Rivals.com and all of the scout services were just coming online. Yeah. The internet was getting big. So now the hype was magnified. And I'm a city kid, you know what I mean? So if you know about the U of M, I mean, I know you know, but some people watching may not understand. People who from the city, they know, but people who may see this around the country may not understand the geography of the U of M. It's right smack in between Minneapolis and St. Paul. Yeah. Well, I grew up in both. Yeah. So when I hit the campus, there was no, you can't come hang with me. The entire hood come hang with me. Yeah. That's
you had the best part.
You know that. You know that. You know how I was moving around. But so what came with that was interesting, right? Because I didn't see it as us causing trouble. And we never really caused no trouble. There were no gunshots. Yeah. There were no arrests. There were no big brawls or fights. There was no robberies or nothing like that. But there were a lot of black people on campus, and they were with me, and they were my age. The profile of a young black man being a threat or trouble. And really what I was trying to do was use my success to pull other people around me into an environment where they could see something different and relax from the everyday chaos.
You was kind of doing what you do when you make it to the league. It was kind of like you made it to the league.
But I was doing it in college.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I'm bringing all the guys.
I'm bringing with them. And so this is what happened. The U of M that summer had a flood of frat roll / party traffic. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that me and Rodney were staying home. And there was just a lot of hype around Gopher sports. And so I remember one time, and not only that, but we had people from the city that were coming in and then pulling other people in. So it became this like central location.
Y'all real accessible.
Man, it was wild to the point where I remember one night on Frat Row, I come out of my dorm and it's like 9:30. And the whole area in Dinkytown from McDonald's all the way down to where it used to be, I think, Blockbuster or whatever the video store was, and back this way towards University campus, filled with people. Must have been like 5,000, 6,000 people out there. Now, I had grew up going down to the U of M and seeing it had never been like that before.
Right.
So that continued for a couple of weeks, and then there was a rumor that spread that downtown clubs were no longer letting 18-plus men in, that they were only letting 18-plus women, and the men had to be 21. So then we had a whole nother flux of people who were like, man, we can't get in downtown, so we down here hanging out. Right. And so when it got crazy, the football team one night got into a little altercation with some of the guys from the South Side, and some stuff went down, and they threw it on me. And now I grew up on the South Side a little bit. My grandmother used to work on the South Side.
The football team got into it.
The football team got into it with some guys from the South Side, and I got a call. My coach pulled me into the office. This is how crazy this stuff got. Coach pulled me into the office, and he said to me, I got a call from the football coach saying that some of your friends did X, Y, and Z. And I'm sitting there going, who are you talking about? Like, we weren't even over there. We weren't even on that side of campus. But because I knew the guys, because I grew up from here, they just say they my friends. They threw it on me. I'm like, man, I probably know 50% of the people down here because I grew up from here. So that started the trouble where the U of M Police Department opened up a file and say Royce is, quote unquote, bringing unwanted activity to the campus.
You're a risk, basically.
Yeah.
At any given moment, it could be. They try to make it seem like that's discrimination?
I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, we were from the neighborhood. The guys that I had around me were from the neighborhood.
But I mean, that seemed like unfair though, because you got recruited still.
Here's what's unfair about it. What's unfair about it is these liberal universities like the University of Minnesota that talk about or are the spearhead for equality and diversity and inclusion and all of these policies and politics that say they want to bring black people together or empower and uplift them are the same people that weren't comfortable with me having the young black men around me. Yeah. And at the time I didn't realize it, but it was really aimed at black men. Yeah. And that's something we got to talk about because this whole racial inclusivity thing is a little more one-sided than they put on. People don't really like black men. Even these liberal white folks who try and say that they're pro-black, they don't really like black men. And they certainly don't like traditional or heterosexual black men, but that's another.
No, we definitely gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
But at what point did you have to leave though?
So there was a night on campus. We were on the other side of campus over in the freshman dorms. I didn't live there anymore. I lived in apartments up on the university side, close to 35W Bridge. If you know where that is, right when you cross 35W coming in from North Minneapolis, you cross the bridge and then that's the campus right there. Yeah. I lived in those apartments. Yeah. But we were over on the freshman dorm side, Centennial, where all the freshmen live. And we was in a dorm one night and a girl's laptop went missing. I had no clue about it, had nothing to do with it. I get a call like a week later from an investigator from the Minneapolis the University of Minnesota Police Department, and she's like, "Yeah, we got some questions about something that went down at the dorm, and we'd like you to come in." And I said, "Okay, cool," because I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come down there right now." And so I get in there, and they basically ambushed me, and they're like, "Well, we know you had something to do with this laptop being stolen, and we're gonna prove it, and you'll never play again." And I just like, I hope this is being recorded because you're going to have to apologize one day. Right. And so I walked out of there, and the reason I went initially because Tubby told me, like, okay, just cooperate, because they called him first. So he calls me, and then I'm like, I'll go down there and answer the questions, no problem. So obviously when I'm in there, they're showing me these pictures of, the surveillance cameras and say, who's this person? Who's this person? Who's this person? Slapping pictures down on the table. I'm not telling you anything about who anybody else is. You're not about to use me to profile anybody. I said, what are you asking me? Well, you're not going to tell us who it is, then, okay, well, do what you're going to do then. You're going to suspend me? I haven't done anything wrong. So I was already militant going at the establishment then. Yeah. And then after that, what happened was they just dragged the case out for like 4 months while the administration for the team, the AD, Joe Maturi, who isn't there anymore, Joe Maturi said he wasn't going to let me play until the case was resolved. Well, the case got drawn out past the season.
Right.
And then Tubby came to me and he said, first of all, they charged me with trespassing at a dorm. They never charged me with stealing a laptop or anything. They charged me with trespassing because I didn't steal a laptop. They knew that from the beginning, though, because the girl got her laptop back the same weekend it was taken. So they just drug this case out to keep me from being able to play because our AD said that he wasn't going to let me play until the case was completely solved. And then after the season, Tubby was like, I want you to come back. I know they did you wrong. I want you to come back. And I was like, I can't do it.
So kind of what happened to DeLaSalle kind of happened again, basically.
No, DeLaSalle.
I mean, as far as like not being able to play, that's the reason you moved on.
Yeah,
That's
a little bit. But DeLaSalle was different. I mean, DeLaSalle, I got to take that one on the chin. Me and my teammates were, you know, looking at each other's answers on the test. Now, I don't think that's real severe like they made it. Yeah. But that's their choice. This their school. Yeah. But the U of M thing was purely a situation of them.
How they catch you though? Was it you did something silly?
Oh, I don't even remember how they. I don't even remember really how we got caught. I mean, that's a common thing in high school.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's a common thing in college. So
yeah, it's a.
I mean, I'm not advocating for that or saying people should do that. But what I'm saying is that was petty.
Yeah.
But it was still DeLaSalle's choice, and I still got love for DeLaSalle. My sister just graduated from DeLaSalle, and she's going to Wisconsin now. But the U of M thing was a complete situation where the police department got it in their head that I was some type of criminal, and they were going to treat me like a criminal, and they end up being wrong. But of course, they weren't going to apologize. And at that time, I'm like, well, if I stay, now that they ended up being wrong, how long is it going to be before they come after me again?
Yeah. But sometimes they be mad they wrong.
Right.
So now they need to be right. You know.
Oh, it got crazy. Ask anybody from the neighborhood who was around at the time. Yeah. Ask them how they were doing me. They were parking cars on the block of my apartment and putting undercovers at the coffee shop across the street. We used to mess with them. We used to laugh at like, what do you guys do? You guys treating this like we running like we're the mob. Like, what are you guys surveilling us for? Right. Like
we got notebooks.
I'm going to practice. Yeah. I'm going to the weight room. I got a case full of muscle milks on me, and a few girls coming and going and hanging out. But it's not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. But so after that, you ended up at Iowa State. Yeah. But it was a gap. How long before you ended up at Iowa State?
It wasn't. So when I left the U of M, I was going to be done playing. I was like, man, I was going to be done. I wasn't even going to play anymore. But then
like done with who?
Done. I was done.
Why?
It's because I was like, the whole thing is corny. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the fact that my coach, that Tubby, didn't have enough juice at the university to stick his neck out and say, nah, this man's innocent till proven guilty. I already understood that basketball was a microcosm of the greater society. And I was like, I'm ready to get on some grassroots activist type stuff.
Okay.
You know, that was my mindset. Is like,
even that early, that was my
right
mindset.
then.
Okay.
I mean, when you encounter the system in that way, it changes your perspective on things. Yeah. And so I just kind of went back to the crib, kind of got my head together, chilled out, spent time with my kid's mom, and we was just out of the way. And then I got a call from third party, and they were like, Coach Calipari may want to talk to you, right? And he was at Kentucky. So then, what
years is this?
This was in the summer or in the spring after the year I had missed. So my freshman year, like in the spring after the season.
So is that what, 2000?
This is 2010.
2010, okay.
Yeah, so in that summer, because the season started, I didn't play that whole season. So then in the summer, I was kind of away from things and doing it. So then I got that call from Calipari, or from somebody who said Calipari might be interested. And that sparked my interest again, right? That made me excited a little bit about playing, because number one, it's Coach Calipari. I'm like, man, if I was going to transfer something, I didn't